You're watching CBS Austin News at 5. Central Texas. Trusted.
Developing now, the cleanup begins after a gravel train derailed in East Austin early this morning, hitting a utility pole and causing temporary power outages for nearby residents. The Austin Police Department says it happened just after 3:40 a.m. on the tracks that run parallel to East 6th Street. The train was 90 cars long and 7 of them toppled over. The Austin Fire Department says no one was injured in the derailment. Crews finished clearing the tracks around 3 p.m. today. Cap Metro says their rail service is temporarily down and that riders can find bus routes along rail routes in the meantime. Police are investigating a homicide that killed one girl last night. Police responded to a call from the bridge at Harris Ridge Apartments around 6 p.m. and found a girl with gunshot wounds before she died. There is no suspect in custody at this time. Police say there's no threat to the public and that this is an isolated incident. The Austin City Council will vote on whether to approve a contract with the Austin Police Association this Thursday. The police contract would require the release of confidential disciplinary files known as G files to comply with the 2023 Austin Police Oversight Act. CBS Austin's Andrew Freeman attended a community town hall over the proposed contract where discussions surrounding the G files were front and center.
What we want to do is not to tell you all what to do.
The Austin Justice Coalition hosted a town hall Wednesday to discuss a proposed police contract Austin City Council will be voting on after months of negotiations.
We want people to be able to decide for themselves if they think this contract is fair or just or not.
One of the biggest topics surrounded disciplinary records known as G files, previously confidential documents until Austin voters passed the Police Oversight Act in May of 2023, which called for their public release.
We preach the values of people voting, the integrity of voting, and then to turn around and not to respect the wishes of the voters is, I think, a slap in the face of the people that voted.
After months of legal challenges, in late August, a state district judge ruled against the confidential nature of these misconduct records. And now the City of Austin's Office of Police Oversight has released its first batch of 11 documents dating back to 2020.
I think it's a step in the right direction, right? But again, to make sure that the language in the contract is clear-cut.
The records chronicle investigations into alleged misconduct by Austin police officers and outline disciplinary recommendations.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Police have so much power that there should be high levels of transparency and accountability.
City Council members Vanessa Fuentes and Jose Chito Vela are now calling for additional resources so the city can release more documents as soon as possible.
It's going to take us a long time to process that and pull it out of storage and redact confidential information within it.
Vela says if this is the level of transparency and accountability the city can expect from the new police contract, he says he's likely to support the vote next week.
That is something that we've been striving for as a community for decades. And we have an opportunity to really lock that in.
Reporting in Austin, Andrew Freeman, CBS Austin News.
In a statement, Austin Police Association President Michael Bullock says officers weren't notified prior to publication or given an opportunity to see what was going to be published. We have recognized that certain G-file material can be released, he said, but to do it this way is haphazard and extremely disrespectful to the officers who are affected by the release. Death row inmate Robert Roberson did not appear at the state capitol despite an unprecedented subpoena to delay his execution. Roberson was scheduled to be executed last Thursday for the death of his 2-year-old daughter Nikki in 2002. Minutes before he faced lethal injection, the Texas House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee issued a subpoena for him to testify. Roberson ultimately did not appear following a dispute between lawmakers and Attorney General Ken Paxton. The committee heard from witnesses who support Roberson instead, including a juror from his trial who didn't know Roberson's daughter had severe pneumonia before she died.
Nothing else was ever mentioned or presented to us to consider if it had been told to us, and I would have found him not guilty.
Governor Greg Abbott says the committee stepped out of line when they subpoenaed Roberson to save his life, since only the governor can grant clemency. Now the state faces a separation of powers issue, while Roberson's next execution date has not been scheduled.
Now your Storm Tracker weather.
Taking a live shot outside on a beautiful day in Austin, Texas, but a warm one. Look at those birds enjoying this afternoon. But a warm one for October. Chief Meteorologist Chicago Windler joining us live now. No sign of rain, and it's been a hot month.
It has. And you know how I was telling you that Saturday might be when we start seeing record highs? Never mind. Today.
Start today? Why don't we just start today?
Yeah, just start one day earlier. We are at 90 degrees. The unofficial high temperature has made it to 91, which means we have tied a record. If you like setting historical heat records, this is your week because we could see several in the days to come. Outside right now, you can see lots of sunshine. This morning, we did have a good amount of cloud cover, but as soon as it burned off, temperatures have soared. So here we are sitting at 90. And get this, the low this morning was soupy, 71 degrees. Our average low this time of year, 58. Our average high, 79. What is this weather pattern we're dealing with? Right now, I know there is a front. It is to our north and west, and I have a hunch it's going to try to squeeze in at least to the hill country overnight tonight into the morning. But this front really isn't going to pack a punch. It's not going to bring us cooler air. Instead, it might just shift our winds. It won't even bring us any rain. So instead, we've got to wait even longer. This big area of low pressure that's still out in the Pacific is going to push into the western United States. A big, what we call trough of low pressure, will dig down and eventually bring us a pattern change. I'll track when it arrives and what it could bring coming up.
Thanks, Chicago. You know, it's been nearly 50 days without rain in Travis County, and as Chicago mentioned, we're extremely dry and might not see any until the end of October. This drought and the cooler weather increases the risk of wildfires. Austin and Travis County released a disaster declaration to prepare for wildfire risk last week ahead of the UT-Georgia football game and the F1 race at COTA. While those events have passed, the drought still poses a risk. Austin ranks 6th in the nation now for the number of homes at risk of wildfires. City officials say they're raising awareness since most wildfires are caused by people.
Because we cause most of the wildfires, we can prevent a catastrophe from happening just by being cautious with our behavior and caring about those that we love by having a plan in case there is an evacuation.
The city says to discard cigarette butts properly, avoid dragging trailer towing chains, and to use grills or smokers on flat concrete if you cook outside. Over 50,000 people showed up to the polls on the first day of voting in Travis County. That's more than the last 3 presidential elections, and lots more are expected to come. Travis County Clerk Daniel Limon Mercado says the county is expecting over 400,000 people to vote during early voting. She shared some tips for voters. First off, know your sample ballot. 30 other local positions are on the Travis County ballots outside of the presidential and state races. And when you do vote, make sure to bring a valid ID. A list of acceptable documents are at votetravis.gov. Lastly, she says get ready to wait in line.
Grab a bite to eat, grab your bottle of water, and get to the poll place and just prepared. There might be a little bit of a line, but we have great election workers, and they'll get people in and out as quickly as possible.
Austin residents can find polling sites at votetravis.gov. They're open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday and from noon to 6 p.m. on Sundays. Early voting ends November 1st. Vice President Kamala Harris is making a surprise visit to Houston. Why this stop is unusual and what may be the reason. Secretary of State Blinken is in Israel to push for a ceasefire where Israel and Hamas stand on negotiations. Vice President Kamala Harris is visiting Houston this Friday, a rare stop in Texas compared to the battleground states she's targeting in the last weeks of voting. This will be Harris's first time in Texas since securing the Democratic nomination over 2 months ago. A Democratic nominee hasn't won in the state since 1976. Harris's visit may signal Democrats' interest in the Senate race between Republican Ted Cruz and Democratic challenger Colin Allred. If Allred wins the seat, it would help the party obtain a majority in the Senate. A recent UT Texas Politics Projects poll shows former President Donald Trump leads Texas by 5 points, while Senator Ted Cruz holds a 7-point lead over his challenger Colin Allred. The study was conducted earlier in October among 1,200 registered voters. Nearly 4 out of 5 voters are not at all likely to change their minds before they vote. Home values are falling in Austin. How this affects home sellers and what buyers should expect.
If only temperatures were also falling in Austin. Instead, we're not that fortunate, nor are we seeing much relief just yet with a severe drought in place. But there may be some light at the end of the tunnel. I'll track when a pattern change moves in coming up.
You're watching CBS Austin News at 5. Central Texas. Trusted.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is pushing for a ceasefire in Israel today after Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar died last week. Blinken is trying to get Israel and Hamas to negotiate, but chances may be slim since both sides say the war isn't over. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to keep fighting until the hostages are released. Today, the Israeli military warned residents in northern Gaza to evacuate, calling the area a combat zone. And a chief Hamas negotiator said they will not return the hostages until Palestinian prisoners are released and Israel completely withdraws from Gaza. State Department Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel held a press conference over the ceasefire opportunity yesterday.
Whatever the leadership of Hamas looks like, and Hamas as a whole, they have a choice on whether they want to engage meaningfully in continuing the conversations.
The State Department says Blinken will also push for diplomatic solutions between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. North Korea is sending troops to Russia in its war in Ukraine. South Korea's spy agency says about 1,500 North Korean special forces were transferred to a Russian port city earlier this month. South Korea says they're expecting more troops to be sent soon. This comes after Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said North Korean troops were preparing to join Russian forces. The former CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch has been arrested for sex trafficking charges.
Sexually exploiting vulnerable human beings is a crime, and doing so by dangling dreams of a future in fashion or modeling or any other business is no different.
Mike Jeffries and 2 other associates were arrested today for allegedly running a sex trafficking scheme between 2008 and 2015. They're accused of drugging aspiring male models at sex-themed parties. Jeffries will appear in Florida federal court this afternoon. Target slashes thousands of prices ahead of holiday shopping. Prices on more than 2,000 home goods, beauty products, toys, food, and drinks are being discounted. After some bad quarters for the company, the discounts are boosting customer spending. The lower prices will continue through December. This is the second time Target cut prices this year. Well, the housing market, it's seen a drastic change in the last 5 years. Regulators say the Austin housing market is now balancing itself out after homes were selling at an unsustainable rate just a few years ago. CBS Austin's Farrah Walton breaks down the shift that made this happen.
We understand that it is that the Austin market has dropped, and it's it was booming for so many years.
Mark Mata has lived in this home with his family and his 3 dachshunds for 8 years.
We had multiple grandkids' birthday parties here. family gatherings.
He decided to sell because he's ready for more space. Mata's home has been on the market since the end of August. He says selling right now has come with its challenges. Trying to please potential buyers is one of them.
They can ask for more things than they could have a year ago.
New Redfin analysis found in the U.S., Austin had the biggest decrease in housing turnover rate from 2019 at 30 sales per 1,000 homes. That's a 49% drop. Realtor with Keller Williams Austin Portfolio Real Estate, Sharon Morgan, says that's partly because the housing market was thriving then.
And then we had the pandemic. And with COVID, we saw an incredible influx of buyers coming into Austin.
They were able to spend more money with low interest rates to buy homes, but there was very low supply, which Morgan says drove high prices.
Now, where we are today is that we have seen a greater amount of inventory available on the market. We are seeing interest rates higher than they were a couple of years ago,
leaving people to decide if they buy now around a 6% interest rate or wait and hope that rate lowers.
What are you going to miss about living here?
The location.
Back at Mata's house, he says he's selling for less than he would have liked.
We would have sold a year ago. Like I said, it could have been like 100 to 120 more than what's on the market now.
Homes are taking 70 days on average to sell, meaning buyers can take their time finding the right one. A few years ago, Morgan says that number was about 3. Her advice, if you're looking to sell right now?
Managing expectations, preparing your home for sale, and then, of course, competitively pricing your home to the other competitors on the market.
Reporting in Austin, I'm Farrah Walton, CBS Austin News.
Now, your Storm Tracker weather with Chief Meteorologist Chicago Windler.
Well, I'm not sold on this fall weather. I don't think we've seen much fall weather at all. I think we had 4 days.
We had 2 days in the 70s about a week and a half ago, and since then, we're so close to setting records, and today I think we've done it.
Okay, let's, we're about records in Texas.
We don't like hot coffee in Texas,
No.
do we? It's all about the iced coffee. For days, for months. All right, so historic heat is basically the storyline for this upcoming weekend. But then next week, we're going to see finally a pattern change, and that could pave the way for cooler and wetter weather, something we desperately need given the drought conditions. It's 90 outside right now, high temperature 91, which ties the record high. And if you like the sound of that, you're going to love my forecast because I have 3 more records in store, and we could be close several other days. Currently outside, it's 88 in Llano, 85 Johnson City, 88 at the airport, and 89 degrees in LaGrange. This morning, LaGrange, you woke up to another round of patchy, dense fog. Heading into tomorrow morning, I think there will be less fog to contend with, in part because of this front, which is going to make its way toward the hill country. I think it may make it into our area, but then shift back to the north sometime tomorrow. So instead of bringing us cooler weather or wetter weather, it basically just shifts our winds and then heads back on its merry way to the north and doesn't give us any relief. However, see this spin in the atmosphere right here? This is the Pacific Ocean. This upper level low, it's got lots of miles to travel, but there are indications that it is going to eventually push into the western United States and dig down and bring a little dip in the jet stream, which could, if it's placed just right, and if the timing's just right, take our drought conditions and at least give us a little bit of moisture. We've only had 1/100th of an inch of rain in the last 50 days. But here's some promise. We could see maybe 1/4 to 1/2 an inch in the next 7 days of actually increased rain potential, especially for Halloween on Thursday. I know, sorry, trick-or-treaters, as well as Friday, a 30% shot, and that's all contingent on a front that could come in and basically stall over our area. In terms of temperatures, yes, it'll get cooler, but because our averages are now down to 76 starting next week, cooler might be low 80s, cooler than the 90s, but still above average. But here we go, wetter than average in terms of rainfall potential, which will be fantastic. Outside right now, it's 66 degrees. We've got mainly clear skies, or the overnight low will be 66 with mainly clear skies. And then we look ahead to tomorrow where we could see a record. 91 is the record, 91 is my forecast, 90 in 1950 is the record high. Red boxes mean records, and there we go. Monday and Tuesday, more records and more 90s, but we finally bring in some rain chances. Wednesday, Halloween, Thursday, and Friday.
Thanks, Chicago. The biggest Dia de los Muertos celebration in Austin returns this weekend. Where to go and what to expect at the parade. The City of Austin and Mexa Arte Museum are throwing Austin's largest Dia de los Muertos event this Saturday. Viva la Vida Festival will start with a parade downtown in 6th Street from Red River at noon and will continue festivities until 6 p.m. The event will have artists, dancers like that, vendors, and food throughout the day, some great food. Commuters should expect road closures in the area starting at 5 a.m. and that's going to be blocked until later that night after 6 p.m. So, big question now, Chicago. Rain chances this weekend.
Yeah, rain chances not going to happen this weekend. We should be just fine. So for all the Halloween parties, you're just going to have to dress for the weather, which is going to be record worthy, especially on Saturday. We could be 2 degrees away from that on Sunday. The rain chances, though, could enter the picture Wednesday in the form of some drizzle, and an advancing cold front might get close to us on Thursday and even stall across the area. So given that, trick-or-treaters might need to bring a new accessory, potentially. It's not set in stone, but an umbrella or a waterproof costume might, after all these dry days, might be a possibility.
All right. Thanks, Chicago. And thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.